Meet you, Liza.
The last foster home was destroyed in a fire.
It was intense. The fire.
I mean, I can't imagine what she's been through. That's why it's important I don't give up on her, no matter what.
Home and Away, this week on 7.
There is more support for Australians. People with an existing student loan will now pay less overall. To understand these changes and how they benefit you, visit supportingaustralians.gov.au. Authorised by the Australian Government, Canberra.
If you love racing, the sound of the barriers, the smell of the turf, the sight of the crowd rising as they turn for home, then you'll love the new Better app. That's better.
What are you really gambling with?
3, 2, 1, go!
They've raised more than $125,000. It was supposed to be a great day at the Bay and a free summer concert at Colley Reserve, but it ended with serious injuries, major property damage and more than 60 arrests. On Flashback tonight, Adelaide's worst ever public riot.
It was a rock concert promoter's nightmare.
In 1984, Pseudo Echo was one of the biggest bands in Australia. So when SAFM put on a free concert at the Bay, also featuring Sandy and the Sunsets, organisers knew it would be funky, but not violent.
Hundreds of empty beer bottles were hurled at the 20 or so police patrolling the open-air venue. The police had tried to stop a fight when a mob of jeering youths showered them with bottles.
It was a potent mix of hot weather, booze and a much bigger crowd than expected.
A section of the audience became a chanting frenzy of anarchy.
A terrifying experience. It's the sort of thing that you would just never expect could possibly happen in a place like Adelaide.
4 or 5 times they attacked the police, hurling bottles, rocks and anything else they could get their hands on.
Not even reporters were safe.
Within minutes, they'd taken to what they thought was a police car. It turned out to belong to the Advertiser newspaper.
A police inspector, 2 other officers and many members of the public were injured, some of them quite innocently caught in the midst of the riot.
When the riot started, there were only a handful of cops at the scene. There ended up being more than 100.
The Star Force were using riot gear for the first time in a South Australian civil disturbance.
In the nearby Magic Mountain Entertainment Centre, some 40 families huddled inside for several hours.
It was chaos.
Even an ambulance was pelted with bottles as it arrived at the scene.
They must be really sick to do that kind of thing.
The riot renewed debate about pubs opening on Sundays. Lenny's and the Old Pier Hotel in Moseley Square had only just got licences.
The facts are that nothing like this ever happened in Glenelg before last year, which was the first year after this new legislation was brought in.
There was no such thing as a dry zone back then.
There's no legislation in the state that prevents drinking in public places or reserves.
Do you think there should be?
Yes.
Today the reserve was carpeted with broken beer bottles, evidence of the drunken frenzy that erupted after the show.
There was major property damage too.
Nearly all the windows on the northern side of the Glenelg Senior Citizens Club were smashed by beer bottles.
Next one, hand up round beyond.
In the end, 63 people were arrested and 11 police cars smashed up.
The first court appearances took place this morning. 11 people were charged in the Glenelg court with disorderly behaviour and loitering.
The upshot is a public outcry today to ban all future gatherings of this type on the seafront and to plug the supply of Sunday drink.
Still hard to believe it could have got that bad.
It was a bad night for Adelaide.
It certainly was, one we'd rather forget. Time for sport now. Abba, we've got a fair old